Well, Alicia, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Super excited and stoked to be able to talk to you, learn more about your book and your journey, especially in mathematics. For our listeners who don't have the privilege of knowing who you are, can you give us a little bit of background of who are you, where you're from, and what's your role in education?
All right. Thank you so much for having me, you two. My name is Alicia Burdess, and I am the numeracy lead, so math coach for Grand Prairie and District Catholic Schools up in Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada. We have been absolutely lucky to have this bubble of people up here who are just constantly striving for joyful and engaging mathematics. I always say I don't know how it happened, but I do know how it happened. Some very specific people have been up in Grand Prairie offering PD, master's courses, professional learning opportunities, presenting at our teacher conventions. So that's kind of how I've captured the joy and how I now strive to bring it to teachers and classrooms all over Grand Prairie and wherever people will have me.
Alicia, I hope you don't hurt me for saying this, but sometimes math and joy aren't words that like coincide in a lot of people's brains. Tell us about the joy in math, because I think there's a huge amount of joy that could be found in math. So talk to us about where we find that joy in math, and then why isn't it there?
Well, I really think, I've thought about this a lot. I really think the people who find joy in mathematics up to this day and age have been able to just find it on their own, right? Everybody's math teacher, for the most part, as you get into junior high and high school, middle school and high school, they love math, and they tell you they love math, and they tell you that math is all around you, and they tell you that math is beautiful, and math is connected, and math is everywhere in the world. And what's the number one thing that students always ask?
When am I going to use this?
When are we going to use this?
Absolutely, right? And so my goal is to point out these joyful connections, but not in a way where I'm going to tell you about them, in a way that I want you to experience them. So I'll give you an example, if you're ready.
Let's do it.
There's this book. It's one of our new favorites. Now, we collect favorites, so we often have new favorites, but this is our latest and kind of like longest standing favorites. It's called Too Many Pigs and One Big Bad Wolf, and it's by David Cali and Mariana Balducci. It is hilarious, and it's all about, I'll just read the first little bit for you. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. Then the wolf ate them. The end. This story is too short. I want a longer one. Once upon a time, there were 4 little pigs. The wolf ate the first 3. Then he ate the 4th. The end. This story is still too short. So it goes along, and it's a story about this wolf and these pigs. It's really, really funny, and there's just some like naturally occurring math in it, as in the illustrations. The pigs are all on an abacus. There's a funny story. It's also very well connected if you have any English language arts teachers around into like, you know, the components of a story. So there's really some cross-curricular opportunities here. Mm-hmm. Anyway, hilarious, some really cool natural math things that occur. So what we do, my colleague Cheryl Snowball and I are super passionate about this, is we link a big, beautiful problem to it. So here's the problem. Okay, there are 13 piggies, and they live on Bacon Street, and they live in 13 houses in a row. You are the big bad wolf, and you are hungry for a snack. So you are going to run up Bacon Street many times looking for these piggies. The first time you run up Bacon Street, you are going to open every single piggy house door. And then you're tired, so you have to walk back to the beginning. The second time you run up Bacon Street, you are going to close every second piggy house door. And it's a little bit like interval training, right? Mm-hmm. You're tired, so you're going to walk back to the first house. The third time, you are going to stop at every third door. Now, if the door is closed, you're going to open it. If the door is open, you're going to close it. And you're going to continue to do this until you've done this 13 times. So the 13th time that you run up Bacon Street, what piggy house door are you going to touch or stop at? The 13th time, you're only going to stop at the 13th door, right? There's no trick yet.
I would have had to draw a picture, and where's that abacus?
There's no math problem yet. So the 13th time you run up Bacon Street, you are going to only stop at the 13th door. If it's open, you are going to
close it.
And if it's closed, you're going to open it. So after 13 13 times, there's going to be some piggy doors left open. Okay? You're going to find out which ones are left open because those are your snacks. And then you're going to find out why those are the doors that are left open. Now, of course, this is not something that you're just going to think about and come up with a solution. You are going to get some partners, and you are going to get some double-sided counters. Perfect for representing doors that are open and closed. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. And I'm not going to let you know any of it.
I'm going to have to marinate in that for a little bit.
I need my counters, and Josh, you need to come over and we can do this. And
That's exactly what you need. So what we do in classes is they get random groups of 2 or 3, and they get counters. They get a whiteboard marker. Depending on what grade, they either get like a little mini whiteboard that they can use, or they are at a vertical surface and they have a white book on the wall or a whiteboard, and they pull the desks over, because the actual beauty of this problem comes from the counters. If you don't use the counters, you're not going to necessarily see the beauty of the problem. It doesn't mean you can't solve it, but it really comes from the counters.
And maybe the interaction. Like I think of some math instruction that I've witnessed, and I'm guilty of too. Like, kids are at desks, and this is where we learn, and this is how math class is done. And the problems are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 10, and it's not collaborative. It's not social.
When you said, you need to come over and do this math with me, that's what we want math to be. Math is a social experience. Learning is a social experience. So this is why these problems are so great, because they're low floor, high ceiling. Everyone can access them. Those little grade 2 students that set up the 13 piggy houses, they're taking turns, they're flipping, they're figuring things out. They figure out those first, I'm not going to tell you, houses in the 13, and then the next is, okay, what if there are 20 houses? And they go, oh, I need more counters, and they run and they get more counters. It's the same thing with the grade 9s. They do the same thing.
Yeah.
And this problem is adapted from, it's a classic problem called the locker problem, or open lockers. And really, it was open lockers. So when I did this problem with the grade 9s, I gave them the open locker story.
Sure.
So there's 100 open lockers in a hallway, and the same thing.
Well, and what you're describing here, it takes me back to my college math block, because I did not see myself as a math student as a kid growing up. I actually hated math until I was in that class. And we did these things called habit of mind problems, which sounds exactly like what you're saying. Or if you've ever heard about the wolf, the chicken, and the grain of rice problem.
Sure have.
It was problems like that got me to realize, like, wow, math can be fun. But it wasn't until college that I was doing what you're talking about and having those interactions and seeing that math is not just me on my own, but as a collective, we grow together.
So there's this other book, and it's this alien book, and it's this cute little book about an alien coming from outer space and getting lost, and the humans kind of trying to make it feel all comfortable and help it with his spaceship. And it's like, turn the page, and you turn the page, and you shake it so alien can get help jumping up high in the sky, like all kinds of cool things. So right away, there's a ton of math in it, just with rotation and flipping and all kinds of stuff. And these little aliens have 1 eyeball, 2 eyeballs, and 3 eyeballs. So then our problem that goes with that one is, on planet Mathy, aliens have either 1 eyeball, 2 eyeballs, or 3 eyeballs. Can you help make all of the numbers from 1 to 10 using alien eyeballs? So like 5-year-olds can jump into that kind of a problem, right? Like, so you could make the number 4 by using a 3 and a 1, or 2 2s, or 4 1s, right? So that's the thing, like, we can build this into every grade, every age, and as long as we have an engaging context and an engaging math problem, they will work on it for a long time, because it's exciting, it's interesting, they want to know they want to be challenged, right? Yeah.
Something else that's really striking me in this conversation, Alicia, is like, you're not just talking math here, you're talking literacy, you're bringing in books. It's not just math, it's cross-curricular, it's engaging.
You talk about math's a journey, not a destination. So I was going to say, how do we get kids to change their mindsets, and how do we get teachers maybe to change their mindsets with all of the pressure that's put on us with assessments? But I mean, I don't know if you've got more to add to it, but I feel like you've already started at least to answer that question, that if we can get kids motivated in meaningful ways, we're going to see huge changes. Because you're talking about the kindergartners with the alien eyes. I mean, you're throwing in number sense right there for them. I think about my daughter last year when she was in kindergarten, and they're working on how can you make 10. Well, they're not only making 10 in this problem, they're making every number to 10.
Yeah.
So
and like you said too, like that's a perfect segue into how many ways can you make 10 with alien eyeballs? Right? So there's so many extensions, and that's the other thing. There's always somewhere further that you can go with these type of problems, right? It's not actually 13 piggy houses. It's actually 25 piggy houses. Actually, it's 100 piggy houses, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much math, like you said, that's like right out of the curriculum. It's right out of our program of studies. It's the things that we need to teach anyway. But I feel like when it's learning in a context such as this, it's going to stick. And I think those other skills, like you talked about, like the collaboration, the communication, the perseverance, the confidence, the ability to work with other people. I think it's just such a beautiful thing to do math, learning, group work, problem solving, literacy, engagement, stories.
I have to know this. Your passion for math and all the good things that go along with it is just like, it's palpable. Like through the screen, it's just jumping through it. What is your background like?
But my first year of teaching, I'm just like rocking things like fractions, and I'm like making connections for myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm finally understanding the whole idea of the common denominator, and I'm understanding things that I just wasn't in the spot to understand when I was back in junior high. And so I was really getting good at learning math for myself.
Yeah.
And I was up at the whiteboard or chalkboard, and I was just writing, and the kids were writing, I don't know, because I was facing the chalkboard. And then I turned around and I started to look at my students. And then I started to listen to them. And what I noticed was nobody was paying attention. Some of them were pretending. Maybe a few were actually actively. Some were doodling. Only 3 kids were consistently answering my questions. And my questions were so surface level. It was like, oh, yeah, we're finding the common denominator. Okay, what's 3 times 5? Anyone? Oh, 15. Oh, sweet. They're all with me. Keep going. Okay, 2 times 4. 8. So I wasn't even asking them things that were actually worth answering. So that's when I knew that I had to do it differently, because I had experienced it being different in my courses at university, and I knew, but I just didn't know how, and I didn't know what to do. So I signed up for every single PD you could ever possibly go to, every single math conference I could get my hands on. We had people like Grayson Wheatley, who's no longer with us, but he came to Grand Prairie. We had Peter Lilliadall came to Grand Prairie a ton. Ended up doing my master's through Simon Fraser University with Peter and his crew, building thinking classrooms. If you want to look more into that, we've just had like the most amazing opportunity to learn and to engage with math education. So that was it.
I want to go back. You said when you were, I think it was in your grade 12 class, you were always asking the why. Why is this happening? Why is this? And one thing that we see in education is that math has started to change from there's at least the way we teach, or at least the way I see it. Math is starting to change from there's one way to do it, and it's the standard algorithm, to let's show a bunch of different ways to get to the answer, so that we can hit all of our learners the best that we can. But there's some pushback from parents or from guardians. Do you have any suggestions on how teachers kind of combat that? Because I think it's easy to just be like, well, this might not be the way that you learned, but I'm trying to teach 30 other kids too.
Well, and the traditional algorithm actually doesn't show any understanding, and it doesn't promote any understanding, right? Like the traditional algorithm was made as a shortcut to save money and save paper, because when the printing press came along, they didn't want to write it all out. So they made shortcuts to literally save money and save paper. That's where the traditional algorithms came from. It was to show the steps in as few moves as possible to save money and paper. So even when you write out the standard algorithm step by step, it makes so much more sense, right? Like when you do partial multiplication, like I wish I had a screen, but there's so many things that make way more sense. But the problem is our parents, our own parents, and the parents of the students we teach, they would have had none of that shown to them. If we're teaching addition 6 different ways, some students are just like, I can't handle 6 different ways, and I can't show you 6 different ways, and I can't be assessed 6 different ways. Right. So and it's an art, and it's hard, and it's really hard because we didn't know them. So first of all, we have to learn them ourselves. Then we have to figure out how to teach them. But then we also have to figure out actually not just how to teach them, but how students can develop them themselves. And if you've ever seen a kid use a number line or use the box method for like the number line for addition subtraction, or use the box method for multiplication, or use the area model for factoring trinomials. You'll be blown away because it makes so much more sense, right? It's so much easier to understand, and the kids know what they're doing because they're understanding the steps. But not only that, the steps represent real math. They don't just represent a shortcut or a quick way to find the answer. That's just like owning it and explaining it and having those conversations with the parents when they come and ask the questions, and help support them at home as well. Once you show them sometimes the beauty of a number line, or the beauty of when you're multiplying with the box method, that you can actually see all of the multiplication steps, right? Instead of the carry the one and adding at the end. It's quite powerful. So sometimes it's just conversation and perseverance.
Along your journey, you also found time to write this amazing book. It's called The Dragon Curve. Tell us about it. How'd you come up with this? What was the genesis? Like, lay it out for us.
So I had a professor. Her name is Natalie Sinclair from Simon Fraser University, and she's absolutely brilliant. And she's done research on those feelings, the aesthetics of mathematics, right? Like this like recognizing its beauty. And I'd always heard that math is beautiful. I'm like, yeah, right, math is beautiful. What's beautiful about a bunch of numbers? So in one of her classes, we explored the Dragon Curve. So this is a story to help students explore the Dragon Curve. Now this is the first edition, so you have the latest and greatest.
There you go.
So basically, I'll give you a little bit of a synopsis. So Ayana is the little girl in the story, and she's bored. And her mom always told her that only boring people stay bored. So she went to find something to do. So she went for a walk, and on the road, she saw a long, skinny strip of paper. It looked like a road, so she followed the road. Then she picked it up, and she folded it in half. When she folded it in half, she opened it to 90 degrees, and it looked like a mountain. So she climbed the mountain. Then she asked what would happen if I folded my strip of paper in half again. So she folded it back up, and then she folded it in half again. So basically, the iterations of her folding this paper in half progresses through the story, and it becomes even more like intricate and complex things. And then you'll see what it becomes at the end of the story. And basically what she's folding is a fractal. And the fractal is actually called, I don't even know if this is giving it up, but it's called the Dragon Curve. And as an adult in my 30s, this was the first time that I was like, oh, I get it. Because the crazy thing is about the Dragon Curve is if you keep folding the piece of paper in half and you keep opening it up and making those 90-degree angles, if your paper was infinitely long, you could keep going forever. It's just so beautiful. And so when we read this with students, we get them a long, skinny strip of drywall tape, and we get them to spread out their wingspans, and they get a piece of paper as long as their wingspan. Okay. So from fingertip to fingertip. And it takes about 7 folds, and then they can see their dragon. And I really wanted to write a book about math that was imaginative and had nothing to do with numbers, although I'm sure mathematicians have linked numbers to the Dragon Curve, don't get me wrong. Yep. It's also available in French.
I'm curious if you have any must-have resources.
If you're interested in BTC, there's a lot of stuff out there right now for BTC, so I would check out. He has a book called Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, and just released a second book, actually, with more tasks. So that would be number 1. Feel free to go to my website. It's just aliciaburdess.com, and those are available for free to download and share and explore with your students.
In the 1960s, there was this song about what the world needs, and back in the 60s, it was love. But we always ask, what does the world need now?
It needs joyful learning experiences. That's it. We're teachers. That's why we're here.
I like that, because if we can offer kids those joyful learning experiences, they're going to become lifelong learners, right? Because they won't close themselves off. They won't have that fixed mindset. They're going to be willing to take risks and persevere when things outside of school even get hard.
And Joe Bowler has a ton of good resources as well for mindset, right? It's mindset and mathematics. So she's been a big influence on us as well in terms of some of those videos, showing kids that, you can believe in yourself, you can grow your brain. Mistakes are actually important for learning. You make mistakes, and then as you learn, that's when you see improvement, and that's when hopefully you see your confidence increase as well, right? Yeah. But most importantly, it needs to be joyful.
Absolutely. Alicia, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you both. It was really, really fun.